Hello again, and we are back with another Hangout on air. And again, with Peter Milligan and Sophie Sandel. I should start with the ladies first. Sorry, my mistake. We are going to talk today about 9 ways of dealing with changing times. So these are advices how you deal with the world that is now the VUCA world. I think it has been always changing. The thing is that the speed of change has increased. It's the only thing that is a big thing. So, Sophie, what is your first piece of advice how to deal with changing times?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I was thinking about when I decided to move from London back to Sweden properly. Before that, I was like commuting back and forth for a bit, but I decided, okay, I should make the move. And that was changing time for me. And it was quite hard. It's both practically, mentally, and spiritually hard to change environment in that way. Um, but one thing that really helped me to deal with the change was to change my way of communication. So I started to talk about the move as if lots of people who live in London, they want to live in the countryside somewhere else. So it's something positive that I'm doing. And I often mention that human beings we are all, it's easy to adopt to change. And we are made for living in changing times. But if you live in one place, you don't see it. But if you move to a new place, you see the change all the time. And that's the difference. So I changed part of my language to deal with this big transformation. And I also communicated with a few other people who did the same thing to check that I was normal. Like, do you also experience this? And people were like, yeah, that's similar to me. Okay, I like, thank you. I'm normal then, good. So both changing communication and checking out with other people if they felt weird about something, it helped me to deal with this change.
Good. Peter, your turn.
Okay, my first point is change your relationship with fear. So one of the interesting things that people perhaps forget is that fear and excitement are actually pretty much the same physiological experience. And the real difference is how we think about what's going on, how we talk to ourselves about what's going on inside us and around us. And I often tell the story about my move from Australia to the UK at a time when we had no work, we had nowhere to live, we had a family, we had a 5-year-old child. And many people would say that's a really scary thing to do. But at the time, we just considered it to be something that was exciting. We knew there was a risk, but it's how you think about the whole experience. And so for us, it was exciting. Yeah, there's a bit of fear there, but fear is useful to kind of keep you awake to the potential things that could happen or you need to guard against. But beyond that, fear isn't of much value because it makes you either want to run away or freeze or fight and so on. And really, the main thing is if you're awake and you feel a sense of aliveness and excitement about the whole experience, then you're more likely to handle the challenges and the changes that you're facing.
Well, my first advice is to break routines from time to time. If you go always the same way to your job or to school or whatever, from time to time, break the routine, change a path, change small routines, and that's a way of challenging yourself because sometimes we get entangled in routines. Sometimes we are like, okay, we don't want to do another thing because it creates a kind of fear of changing the routine. And if you get used to change from time to time, you change the routine, but like in a moment, okay, today I will do it differently. And suddenly you start discovering that there are wonderful things that happen when you change routines because you get some stories, you get some episodes, you get things that you see that you haven't seen before. And it's a great way. And it's my own experience. I work without routines. My work is always without routines. I don't have a schedule in terms of hours that I will always do this kind of stuff at these hours. And that creates a sense of discovery. Of every time there is a discovery, a new discovery. So it's fun. So, Sophie, your second advice. Now you look like Nemo because you have off mic.
I muted myself there. Yeah, well, often when we go through change, we are encouraged to be positive. But I would like to encourage you to explore negative thinking and see what that can give you, because your mind will think negatively whether you tell it not to or not, if it's a big change going on. So why not just sit down and do a proper negative thinking brainstorming, maybe just with yourself or with someone else, and just let all the negativity go out. Because if you try to keep that inside you, you may just have like a brain that goes faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and never can relax. So explore negative thinking. And if you need some book tips, I know that Sven Brinkman's book, Stand Firm, it's called. It's available on Amazon, or like I don't know. There are lots of authors who write about this phenomenon.
Is it a he or a she?
Sven, he's a man.
Okay, Swedish?
Danish.
Danish, right, okay, thanks.
Yes.
Almost the same thing.
We are Vikings, we're the same.
Yeah.
Well, but anyway, so I think that can help in some situations where you just feel up and you want to move on to something which you haven't really done before. So we are all different. We know some people we worry a lot, and some people don't worry a lot, but we need to allow both people to exist. And if you are a person who never worry, it will not help a person who worry a lot to say, don't worry, because they will worry anyway. So anyway, let people be who they are and explore a bit of negative thinking.
Okay, thank you, Sophie. Peter, your turn.
Okay, my second one is to see change as a cycle rather than a one-way single journey. I think the mistake we often make is we think, okay, I've got to go through this change, but once I get to the other side of it, it's over and I can just relax. And it's fine to relax for a while, but I think it's really useful to think of it as like a cycle. There's a great model actually by a Swedish psychologist who I'm probably going to mispronounce, but it's Klaus Jansen. You feel free to correct me if I've said it wrong, Sophie, as a Swede. But anyway, Klaus Jansen came up with a model called the 4 rooms model. And basically he says there's one of the rooms is called the contentment room, which is where we're really relaxed and we're feeling totally in control and comfortable and everything's working for us. And we think we don't need to change. When things around us change, we then can end up in the denial room, which is we're sort of seeing a bit of change going on around us, but we think it doesn't really apply to us and we can just keep being the way we were and it'll just pass us by and it won't be a problem. But eventually we kind of wake up that the world's moving on and we do need to adapt and change. So the third room is the confusion room. And this is right a kind of a scary place because you know you need to change, but you're not sure how and when and where to go about it. But hopefully, eventually you kind of work out what it is you need to do. And then you move back up to the renewal room. And this is like, now I'm kind of feeling good again because I'm adapting and changing. And then we end up back in the renewal room where we kind of sit back and go, great, you know, I've done really well, which is fine. But the thing is, don't become complacent. You know, enjoy your mastery at whatever skill you've done. And that applies whether it's an individual or whether it's a business. You know, we can reap the rewards of a harvest of the work we've done in the past, but we need to remember that there'll be another cycle of change to go through.
Okay, so my second advice is connected with your first advice, Peter. And we think that we should, at some point, challenge our fears. And sometimes it can be like passing through a sidewalk that we have a kind of fear of it, or it can be jumping from a plane, or walking on fire. I did those two things, also the sidewalk, but that is something different. But also you can go to, in terms of the traveling nowadays, for instance, people are like traveling more or less to the same places. That's why you go to Paris, it's crowded. Go to Barcelona, it's crowded. Go to London, it's crowded. Because everybody goes to the same places. Go to different places, completely different places. And that also will challenge a lot of your ideas that you have, because many times if you go to a country and you are closed down inside the resort, what is your knowledge about the country? But you probably are in that resort because you are afraid of what is outside the resort, because crazy things will happen. So
yeah,
challenge yourself. If you want to go crazy, jump off a plane, or walk on fire. But you can do these kind of small things. You can even do like tourism very close to your place, because many times people take the plane to go like 3,000 kilometers away, and they don't know 50 kilometers away. So like you say in England, miles, correct? Or are you still in kilometers? I don't understand. So Sophie,
Yes.
or the next one and last one.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this, like what to do in changing times and how to deal with it. And I thought about our spiritual side, and that we can feel like everything moves so fast around us, but where are we with our spirit? And this is for people who believe in the spirit and choose to do that. I'm not gonna, if you feel like this is not for me, just ignore my advice. But anyway, like if you're a person who is searching for help, when things are changing really faster around you, why don't you go out and search for spiritual advice? And I promise you, by just searching and asking people you will find a good place to go and develop your spirituality. And that's how I believe it works that way. You will find what you're searching for. So I'm not going to point you into a certain direction, but you need to go on that journey yourself. But that will help you to maybe calm down a little bit and connect yourself with Mother Earth in another way that you've done before. So that's my tips.
Okay, so your turn. Third and last one from Peter.
Yeah, actually, mine connects back to your point, Filipe, which is the around the not letting too much routine and structure take over your life, to keep doing things differently, break your routine a bit. Mine is to recognize the value of order and chaos. Now, sometimes people think, well, order is a good thing and chaos is a bad thing. But that's not true, because if you think about it, in an organization, when it becomes so rigid and so bound up in processes and rules and regulations, there's no scope for innovation and creativity. And that can mean that what made the organization successful, if it becomes outdated, it will become like a dinosaur. So we have to be willing to have some flexibility and room for innovation and difference. But if we have too much chaos, of course, then things start to fall apart. So I've often said a good leader is someone who brings some order to chaos. You get leaders who come into an organization and it's all over the place. It's a real mess, and it needs to be structured and ordered so that the business can be, growing and become more effective in delivering. But on the other side, sometimes you need leaders who come into an organization that have become so old-fashioned and structured in their approach that they need a bit of disruption, a bit of change. And some leaders are very good at bringing that. But I think all of us have to recognize that both order and chaos are valuable, but too much of one can mean we're going to have problems.
I fully agree with you, Peter. especially because I'm in the teaching and training business. And one thing that I learned about the learning process is that it's a chaotic thing.
A what thing?
Chaotic.
Chaotic. Yeah.
Because we tend to organize it very much, but the way we learn as human beings is chaotic. We learn from bits and bytes, and you can see how we learn a language, how we talk our native language, our mother language. There is no room for order for that, and we are really good at it. So my last one, always have a plan B. A lot of people are like in their own job at this point, and they have this feeling that change will happen to others, not to them. But of course, everything is changing. If we go to let's say to the entrance of the subway and we ask 100 people, are things going to change in the next 10 years? People will say, I believe like 90%, if not 100%, will say they will change. And for you, it is a different thing. So a good way of coping with change is what I will do if, let's say, Monday I don't have any job, the company goes bankrupt, whatever. What I will do. And most people, like 99.9%, never have this thing, because this is like thinking about death.
Yeah.
But eventually death also will happen. So
yeah.
And many times another thing is that because people don't think about that, they leave their relatives with a lot of problems. And sometimes they don't think about that and they create problems. So think about always having a plan B in life, because that gives you more comfort. If change happens, you are like, okay, I have an idea what I can do. It's not like you go like a headless chicken around like, oh, what I do now, what I do now. No, you have a plan B. So guys, that was my 3 ones. Do you want to add anything else? We are very good on time today.
We are. No, that's all for me. That was really good. Thank you.
Sophie, microphone? You look like Nemo.
Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, well, I think we all people are in need of advice about dealing with change. I think it's so many going through change and so many people moving. So many people are not moving voluntarily as I did. They're moving because they have to. And deal with change and adjust to new society is really hard. It's really, really hard. And there are not like one way of doing it, but there are probably hundreds of tips how to make it a little bit easier. And here are some of them, I think. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter and Sophie. Always delightful conversation with you guys. See you around for the next 9 tips. And we will know in a moment about what. Have fun.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Ciao. Bye-bye.